Hey guys, welcome to the level 1 geometric reasoning paper from 2021. The way this video works is that I go through each question, let you guys know what you need to do for achieved merit and excellence. The best way to watch this video is to pause the video at the start of each question, have a go at the question by yourself, and then unpause the video just to see how I go about answering it. So without further ado, let's get started. So one thing worth remembering that, especially for geometric reasoning, is that your calculator is probably reset and you want to just make sure that your calculator mode is in degrees. So to do that, you go into main menu, just go into run, shift, set up there, and just go down to radians, where the angle's in radians right now. So we want to change that to degrees. So we're going to put that as F1 and press enter. A good little thing to do is just putting in sine of 90, and if sine of 90 is equal to 1, then you are pretty much in the correct degrees mode. So yeah, on to question 1 then. Okay, so with question 1, we've actually been asked to calculate the length x, which is basically this thing right here. Let me just highlight that and show you working clearly. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the triangle at the bottom. So I'm basically looking at this triangle here where the angle is 20 degrees and the distance, well, at the top there is 18 centimeters. So I'm using my SOHCAHTOA. So what am I looking for? I'm actually looking for opposite. I've got adjacent, and I know that I need to use the tan rule here. So I can rewrite this as, what do we got? So I've got tan of 20 equals opposite over adjacent. So tan of 20 equals opposite, which in this case is going to be x, divided by a, which happens to be 18. We cross multiply this and we're going to get x is equal to 18 multiplied by tan 20. Of course, we're going to put that straight in the calculator here. So we've got 18 multiplied by tan 20. All right, so which actually gives us 6.55 centimeters. Looking, 2DP confirms the correct working. Right, so you actually want to be putting at least up to 2 decimal place in this one, because just having a look at the answer schedule here, as you guys can see, they actually say 2DP confirms the correct working, which I guess you just got to make sure you put 2 decimal place. So we've got 6.55 as our answer, so that is going to give us a grade of achieved. So let's go to the second part of this question here. So the second part of the question is it's asking us to calculate the angle y. So that's going to be the top triangle. So I'm going to be looking at the green triangle here. So I'm just going to copy that down into, so what do we got, 35, 18. So we've got the triangle that looks like this. I forgot the numbers, 35 and 18. So this is 35 centimeters. This is 18 centimeters, and this is y. So once again, we need to label our sides. So we've got adjacent and we've got hypotenuse. So we're going to be using the cos rule. So we've got cos of the angle, which is y, is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So we've got cos y equals 18 over 35. Then we've got y is equal to inverse cos of 18 over 35. Now notice how I don't actually calculate 18 over 35 straight away and then work with this long decimal place or anything like that, because look at this. If I do 18 over 35, it's a recurring, like it's a never-ending decimal, right? So that's why I left it in the fraction, so it's a lot more accurate. So I can actually go shift cos of 18 over 35, and what I end up getting is 59.05 degrees. So you can just put in 59. Interesting, in the answer schedule they've said 59.1 degree is okay, but in the previous question they've said for 2 decimal place. Play it safe. I mean there's nothing wrong with 59.05, and you can put that as degrees. By the way, this question is worth another achieved. Yeah, so nice way to start the exam so far, with like 2 straightforward achieved questions. Okay, so let's go to part B of this question. So part B, well, question B, part 1 of this question is that we've been asked to prove that the length AF is 1.4142. Now, if we have a look at it, AF is this distance right here. Now, a couple of things to notice about this particular question is that we've been told that this rectangle, with its corner lying symmetrically on the edges of the square. So we can kind of assume that this right here there's a line of symmetry going there, which means that this 2 sides here are actually equal to each other. Now, if they are equal to each other, we can actually blow it up as a little triangle right here. There's a couple of ways of doing this, right? The first way is through Pythagoras. So I could actually say that this is the length AF, and this becomes AE, and this is 2. Now, both of these sides are equal to each other. So I could use the Pythagoras theorem, because I could actually say this is x and x. And with Pythagoras theorem, we've got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, a is equal to x, so we've got x squared plus x squared equals c squared, which happens to be 2 squared. Putting this together, we're going to get 2x squared is equal to 4, and then x squared is equal to 4. I've got to get rid of the 2, which is going to become 4 divided by 2, and what we're left with is x squared is equal to 2, which means x is equal to square root of 2, which actually gives us that 1.4142, because on the calculator, if I do square root of 2, I actually get that. So you can actually use Pythagoras theorem to prove this, and if you do prove this all the way to the end, you actually end up getting a merit question. Forming a correct Pythagoras equation gets you an achieved. So I would probably thinking somewhere here you are looking at an achieved. Now, the other way you could have done this is you could have actually used trig for this. I'm actually not going to do this one here, but just to show you the other way you could have done this. Actually, I'm going to do it. It's not very long to do it. So we've got AF is equal to x, and this distance is 2. Now we know that these 2 sides are equal, and when we have a right angle, we kind of know that those 2 other angles have to be 45 degrees. So we could actually put this as 45 degrees, which means this becomes adjacent, and this side here becomes hypotenuse. So we're going to be using the cos rule. Of course, you could use the other 45 and use sine rule, so you know it really doesn't matter, but we're going to use cos in this situation. So we've got cos 45 is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So cos 45 equals adjacent, which happens to be x, and hypotenuse, which happens to be 2. We cross multiply, so we're going to get 2 times cos 45 is equal to x. And in our calculator, we're going to do this. So 2 times cos 45. As you guys can see, you're going to get the same answer here. So if you are using the trig method, forming a correct trig equation gets you a achieved. So I'm guessing somewhere here. And then finally, getting that final answer is going to get you a merit. Cool. So let's go to the second part of this question. So the second part actually says calculate the length W from F to G. I gotta go back to this. So F to G happens to be there. So this is what we're looking for the second part of the question right there. We are asked to figure out what that distance is. Okay, so what we do know is that we're gonna have to kind of draw this diagram separately, but I'm just gonna do the rough sketch first here. So the distance 20 is actually from here to here. Now we figured out what AF is, which is the yellow part. The yellow part is actually worth 1.412, which means this green part here is actually going to be 20 take away 1.4. Oops, sorry. We're going to get 1.4142, and that's pretty much going to be the same distance here as well, because the green line here is going to be 20 take away 1.4142. So with that in mind, we're going to go back down to the question. So we'll really just have this triangle here where f to g happens to be that. And we've got our value, which is 20 take away 1.1412, which is 4142, which happens to be 18.5858. And this side is also going to be 18.5858. So with that in mind, what we then can do is, it's just a simple Pythagoras theorem. So we've got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now c in this case is equal to w, so we're going to put that as w squared, and our a squared is 18.5858 squared plus 18.5858 squared equals to w squared. So we're going to put this in the calculator. So we've got 2 times 1. That's just the answer, so I'm just going to use that squared, and I'm getting 690. So what I've got is w squared is equal to 690.86. So w is equal to square root of 690.86. So I just got to take the square root of this, and when I do that, I get 26.28 centimeters. Now this question is wow, okay, it's just an achieved question. I was wondering, I was like, why does it look so much gap that they gave? But there we go, that's an achieved question, and we will go to the next question. Might need to pause just to have a read through this. So for question C, what we've got here is we're trying to figure out what the angle P is, which is highlighted in yellow. Just trying to think what's the easiest way to do this. I think we've got a couple of things we need to calculate first, right? So we can figure out, if we figure out AB, then we can actually use SOHCAHTOA to try and solve for P. So we've got two options. We can either figure out the yellow line, or we could actually figure out the green line, which is the AE. Now the problem with the green line is I know that I've got the green line, which is going to be pink plus the blue line. Alright, so I hope you guys can see it, so that the pink and the blue is pretty much matching up to the green. But there's no way I can actually figure out the height of the blue line without doing like a couple of extra steps. What I could do though is I could actually figure out what this red line here is, because if I figure out what the red line is, then I can actually do 30, which is the base at the bottom, the 30 minus the red line. So let me just put 30 in a different color. So 30 is going to be the orange line there. So as you guys can see, if I go orange is equal to 30, I can do orange minus red to give me the distance of yellow, and then I can actually figure it out. So my steps in terms of figuring things out are: step 1, I'm going to figure out what the red length is. Step 2, I'm going to figure out what the yellow length is. And then once I get the yellow length, I can actually figure out the angle, which is the third step there. So as you guys can see, 3 steps to do for this particular question to try and solve it. So let's start with the first step. So the first step, I'm looking at the small triangle with the 6 and 52. So that's going to be done here. We've got 6, 52, and a right angle right there. And what do we got? We've got opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. No, opposite and adjacent. So we're going to be using the tan rule. So tan rule, and if it's tan rule, then what we've got here is tan of 52 equals opposite divided by adjacent, and then tan of 52 equals opposite over 6. So this becomes 6 multiplied by tan 52 equals opposite. So opposite is equal to 6 tan 52. 6 times tan 52, which equals 7.68 centimeters. So let's go back to our diagram here. So we've got 7.68 centimeters. So now what we can actually say, the yellow line is actually equal to the orange line minus the red line. I hope you guys can see that there. Okay, so we can actually say 30 take away 7.68, which equals to 22.32 centimeters. So my yellow is 22.32 centimeters. Once I got that, then I've got my last bit of thing, which I've got to try and figure out what the angle P is. And the triangle I'm working with is this one here, which is 22.32. Then I've got 33 as the hypotenuse, and I've got P as my angle. So in this case, I'm working with adjacent and hypotenuse. So I'm going to be using the cos rule. So with that in mind, I've got cos of P equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Cos of P is equal to 22.32 divided by 33, which means P could be written as inverse cos of 22.32 divided by 33. So now I can figure out what my P is. So shift cos of 22.32 divided by 33, and that's going to give me an angle of 47.4 degrees. Cool. So grades wise, what we're looking at is you're going to get an achieved for this 7.68 value. You will get a merit for 47.4 degrees. Now let's say you make a mistake somewhere along the way trying to calculate your angle. You can still get an achieved. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this question, and let's go to the next one. Alright guys, so looking at the last question I believe for this particular question 1. So what we've got here is we've got a series of right angle triangles that we actually need to work out the hypotenuse for, because this question is actually asking for the total length of the red string. So we've got to do them by parts. Now the first part that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking at the top triangle here, and I'm going to try and work out what the distance AB is. So that's the green distance here. And you might be wondering, why am I doing that? Well, partially because I'm going to use the green. Once I figure out what the green length is, if I subtract the 4 from the green length, I'm actually going to get the length of the blue, well, the blue part of the triangle, right, as you guys can see. Next thing I need to work out is I need to work out what the red line is, because what I can do is I can do red minus the orange, which is going to give me the yellow part of the bottom triangle there. So let's work out what the green one is first. So the green one, I'm just going to draw it up roughly here. So there we go. So we've got 17 here, and we've got 2, and that's pretty much what we've got here. So we're using actually Pythagoras theorem to work out the missing side. So we can actually say this as a squared is equal to c squared or h squared, whichever one you prefer using. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, it's been a while. I used to use h squared, but then I changed it to c squared. Doesn't matter, guys. You know, as long as you know what you're doing. Short side, to figure out, you know, the short side, you got a long hypotenuse minus the short side, then you're pretty much good to go. So we've got a squared is equal to 17 squared, take away 2 squared. So a is equal to square root of 17 squared minus 2 squared. So in this case, what we've got is 17 squared minus 2 squared, which is equal to 4. So that's going to give us 285. So A is going to be square root of that, which happens to be 16.88. So the 16.88 is the green length. All right, so we're going to put that in there, which is going to be 16.88. We're going to take away 4, which is the pink part of it, which is going to give us 12.88. So the blue part is worth 12.88. So now we need to actually work out the red length for the triangle on the side, on the left hand side. So we've actually got 64 and 65 degrees. So we're going to have to use SOHCAHTOA for this, and we're looking for the opposite, and we've got the adjacent. So we're going to be using tan. So what we've got here is tan of 65 is equal to opposite over adjacent. So tan of 65 is equal to opposite divided by 4, or we can say that 4 times tan 65 equals to the opposite side. So 4 times tan 65, that is going to be, what do we got, 8.58. Now this 8.58, guys, is the red length. So that is 8.58. And we've got to take away 8.58 minus 2, which is 6.58, and that is going to be the yellow part of it. So remember, to figure out the yellow, I've got to do the red line minus the orange line. All right, so once that's done, that's pretty much good to go. Now I need to work out the length of the red string. So I still need to figure out this hypotenuse here and also this hypotenuse. Now, of course, at this point you can kind of go right, especially for the one on the left hand side. You can be like, well, I could use trigonometry, but it doesn't really matter. You could use Pythagoras, just so much more quicker in this case. So we're going to look at this part here, which is 4 and 8.58. And so this is going to be, I don't know, let's just call it C, for example. So C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. Notice how I'm using C squared. I mean, I could have used H squared. It doesn't really matter. So I've got 4 squared plus 8.58 squared. So 4 squared plus 8.58. And that's going to give me 89.6, well, 6164. So C is equal to square root of that. Square root of 89.6164. So C is equal to 9.47. Now the next thing is looking at that second question mark. I should have really put some letters on, letters on it, but I'm going to put this as C, and maybe we'll put this as P. Should I use P? Yeah, let's use P. It doesn't matter. So for the second triangle, what we've got here is 12.88 and 6.58. And once again, maybe I could use H. That's what I should have used. H and C. C and H. I'll tell you what, I've picked the worst time to record this video, middle of Diwali celebrations, but here we go anyway. H squared is equal to A squared plus B squared, which means we've got 12.88 squared plus 6.58 squared. So H squared is equal to 12.88 squared plus 6.58 squared. And that's going to give us 209.1908. So H is equal to square root of 209.1908. And this is going to give us, what is it going to give us? It's going to give us 14.46. So we can actually figure out what the red string's length is. So red string is equal to 9.47 plus 14.46 plus that original 17. So 17 plus 9.46 plus 14.46, and that's going to give us 40.92. Did I put should have done 9.47, so that would be 40.93. It's all right. I mean, like, you're not too off there. So 40.93, and of course we've got centimeters as our units. So let's have a look at what it is that you guys are going to be getting grades for. So this question, it looks like pretty much a double excellence kind of question. So if you actually work out your final answer as 40.92, then you're going to get like E8 or 8 points for this paper. And I think eventually, I think your total has to be like, what are they giving for excellence in this paper? So if you have a look at it, for excellence you need a score of 21. So you actually get 8 points from that question one part D if you actually get 40.92. Now to get a merit, you need 2 of these lengths. So let's go back to our original page here, and I'll try and put everything together here. So final answer is going to get you guys an E8 right there. Minor mistakes could get you an E7, but for merit, 12.88, where's the 12.88? Oh, yep, I can see the 12.88. So you got a combination of things you can get. For a merit, if you get 12.88, 6.58, 9.47, or 14.46. Now, this is basically, I'm gonna have to do a different way of thing, but let me show you. So these are all your merit ones. So if you get that, this, and this, those are 4 things there. You only need to get 2 of those things with working for merit. Now for achieved, you are looking at just 1 of this. So 16.88, 8.58, 9.47, and 14.46. So this is going to be for your achieved. So for achieved, you only need 1 of them. So if you get either this, this, and this, but you only get 1 of those things, then you are going to get an achieved. Cool, guys. That's basically question 1. Let's go to question 2 soon. Alright guys, on to question 2. At the moment with question 2a, what we're being asked to find is the angle x first, and it also asked us to justify our answer. So I'm going to kind of do this a couple of ways. So I'm going to actually figure out what angle HPE is first. I'm just going to call this little p for now. And I'm also going to calculate, what do we got? We've got light blue. I'm going to calculate this little angle, which is PHE, but I'm just going to put that as little h for now. All right, so hopefully you guys can see how this is going to work out. So angle HPE, so that's basically this angle here, is going to equal 77 degrees. Now the reason it's 77 degrees is because it's vertically opposite. So I'm going to put that as HPE is equal to 77 degrees. And I'm just going to put down vertical op angles are equal. Now you might like to write it as full sentences, or you might like to write it in shorthand. It's entirely up to you. I'm looking at the answer schedule. They do say reasons not necessary, but it's, you know, it's geometric reasoning. It's always a good idea to put your answers in there. All right, next angle I'm going to work out is angle H, which is, or PHE, which is going to be this. Yep, so PHE, I can see that this is equal to 81 degrees. And the reason it's actually 81 degrees is because it's angles in the same arc. So if you look at it, you've got this is the arc, and you've actually got this angle. So those two angles there should equal to each other. So that's how I'm getting that H is equal to 81 degrees. Just going to get rid of this for now because we're going to need that later on. So for this one, we're going to say angles on same arc. And now we can actually figure out what angle X is. So angle X is going to be 180 degrees minus 77 minus 81, because, so to figure out what angle X is, I'm going to look at angles in a triangle, which happens to be that there. And so let's get rid of this. 180 take away 77 take away 81. So that's going to give me 22 degrees. So I can say that X is equal to 22 degrees. And of course, I could say angles in a triangle. Add to 180 or something along that lines. Now, when I look at the answer schedule for this particular question, you've got your answer there, which is actually 22 degrees right here. But it does say reasons not necessary, and I don't know, maybe it just changed it. I know that they were strict with the reasonings in the previous years. Well, maybe for an achieved, they're not stressing too much. But I always say put your reasons in there, guys, just so we don't mess it up. All right, so that's going to be an achieved question there. The next part of the question is we've got find angle Y. Okay, so angle Y. Didn't realize I had all this room to kind of work on this, but that's okay. So to figure out angle Y, what we've got to do is we are actually going to figure out this little angle first, which is on this side, which is going to be angle FCE. Once we figure that angle FCE out, then we can do angles at a point to figure out what Y is. Now, angle FCE, there is a relation between angle FCE and 81, because we know that angles at the center of the circle is twice that at the circumference. So I'm just going to kind of work through here, guys, because I don't want to continue working there. So we're going to put angle FCE equals to 2 times 81, which equals to 162 degrees. And I'm going to write that reasoning down, which is angle at center is twice that at the circumference. Once again, if you do have a shorter way of writing this, you can. But we're not finished with this question. We still have to figure out what Y is. And so we can actually say angle Y is equal to 180 minus 162. Sorry, not 180, 360, because it's angles at a point. So 360 degrees minus 162, which actually gives us 198 degrees. And then we can kind of say angles at a point equals 360 degrees. Again, you might have noticed me writing these reasons in another format in the previous exams. As you can see, there's more than one way to write these kind of answers. Now, grades A part 2 is also worth another achieved. I do apologize that working there. So let's kind of see this. So this should be here, and then this should be here for part A. So 2 achieved questions there. Let's go to question B. All right, let's have a look at this. All right, guys, so with this question, I mean, the way I kind of work around with these questions is that I kind of put down like little markers of how I'm going to solve this. All right, so for example, what I'm going to do is the first thing I'm going to kind of mention is the first step is I know that PQW, so this is the first angle that I'm going to figure out, which is going to equal to 90 degrees. Because of the angle between tangent and radius, right? So that's number 1. Number 2 is I know that I need to figure out what this angle is. And in this case, it's 50 degrees because we've got that 40 plus 90, 180 take away 90. Well, hang on, sorry, 180 take away 90 take away 40 is 50. So I know that angle number 2 is going to be 50 degrees. Next, I know that this angle here is also going to be 50 degrees because you've got base angles of an isosceles triangle. Once I get that, then, so this is step 3, and step 4 is looking at exterior angles in a triangle. So the final answer I'm looking for is actually 100 degrees. So those are my 4 kind of steps that I need to do to solve this question. Okay, so the first part, and I guess it's really easy for me to just play around with the numbers first and then get the answer. Once I'm happy with that, then I actually write down the numbers and the reasoning. So angle number 1, so that's angle PQW. So let me highlight it for you guys. So this is the first angle here, which is equal to 90 degrees. All right, and we can say that that's because it's angle between tangent and radius. Tangent and radius is 90 degrees, so that's number 1. Number 2 happens to be this thing right here. I just realized you guys can't see that shading. Let me just get rid of that. Okay, so number 2 is this angle here, so that's angle QWP. Yep. So QWP is going to be 180, take away 90, take away 40, which equals to 50 degrees, and that's because that's angles in a triangle. That's my second one. My third one is going to be right here. So that's number 3 that I'm trying to work out. So angle number 3 happens to be angle CVW, is also equal to 50 degrees. And that's because base angles of isosceles triangle are equal. And then finally, I can actually work out what the fourth one, which is angle E. So that's the fourth part there, which is angle E. I can actually say E is equal to 50 plus 50, which equals to 100 degrees, because we can say, well, these guys have actually done an extra step, which is find this angle here and then go 180, take away that. But here we can just say exterior angles is sum of interior angles. So I'm kind of just skipping that one extra step there. Now the grades wise, they're saying that required angle is E is 100 degrees, and you have to have at least one valid reason, right? So I guess maybe that's why they try to do this, because I'm going to show you guys. Here we go. So if you have a look at it, they actually found the base angles, so that's the third angle they found out, and then after that what they did was they did another extra step and then put it angles in adjacent angles in a straight line to actually figure it out. All right, but what we did was we kind of did that in like 4 steps there. So as you guys can see, is one of these valid reasons, and correct angle of 100 degrees is going to get you a merit. Anything else is going to get you an achieved. So even if you just give the correct answer only, you are going to get an achieved there. So this grade is worth, this question is worth a merit. And like I said, one answer or one correct reasoning is going to get you an achieved. Cool, let's have a look at the next one. Alright guys, looks like we've got another similar question like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap things up here. So we've got to figure out what angle Y is. So the first thing I'm going to figure out is this is my first angle, angle number 1. Then I'm going to figure out this angle, which happens to be 2. Then I've got 3 and 4, which are equal to each other, and then 5. So you can potentially, but to be honest, I reckon you can actually do this in, trying to look at it, yeah, I think you can do it in like 4 steps, but it doesn't matter, we're just going to do this extra steps anyway. Alright, so the first angle that we're going to figure out is angle KQN. Now this angle is going to be 180. 180 take away 90, take away 38, which equals to 52 degrees. And that's because we can say that it's angles in a triangle. All right, so this is equal to 52. Now the next thing I'm going to work out is the second angle, mark number 2, which happens to be angle MQL. All right, so that's this right here is what I'm trying to figure out right now. MQL. So that is equal to 180 degrees minus, I just realized I could have just done exterior angles with 38 and 90, but that's, it's all right. So here we go, 180 take away 52, that's going to give us 128 degrees, and that's because it's angles on a straight line. All right, next I'm going to work out angle number 3. I don't actually need angle 4 because angle 3 is equal to angle 4, because as you can see there's these two little lines right here. Again, I shouldn't be using this colors. Hang on, let me just point it out to you guys. So you got these two lines here which are actually telling you that that triangle there is an isosceles triangle. Because it's an isosceles triangle, we can actually say that angle QLM equals angle QML. So those two angles are equal to each other. So what we can do then is we can actually figure out what angle 3 is, which happens to be angle QLM equals 180 degrees, take away 52 and divided by 2. So 180 take away 52 divided by 2 is going to give us 64, is it? What am I doing wrong here? Something's not right here. Hang on, not 52. I need to take away 128 degrees because angle 2 is 128. And when I divide that by 2, I'm going to get 26 degrees. And again, I can actually say something like this: base angles of an isosceles triangle are equal. So that's part angle 3, and then which means finally I can actually work out what angle 5 is, which happens to be y. So we can actually say y is equal to 180 take away angle 3, which is 26 degrees, which is going to give us 154 degrees, and that's because it's angles in a straight line. Straight line, there we go. Pretty similar to the previous question. I mean, it's going to give you merit for the correct answer and one valid reason. So if you look at the answer schedule here, so the correct answer of 154 and at least one valid reason, which means any one of these reasons you're going to be getting a merit grade for this question. So like I said to you guys, I mean, the correct answer only right there, see that? That's going to get you an achieved. So if you understand your rules, then what you could be doing is what I did here, kind of just like play around with this, try and figure out what the numbers is, and then if you get the answer and then get like one reason correct, you could be getting a merit for this question. All right, which is actually it's not bad. It's not bad at all. All right, let's go to the next question. Yeah, what do we have here? I gotta pause and have a look at this. Right, now with this question, what I would say is you've got two options. Option A is you can kind of play around with some numbers, but you know what, I mean, and then you can replace it with numbers, with letters, right? But what we could do is we can kind of just start playing around with this already here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down some little marker points for me to kind of know what I'm doing here. So step 1, I can actually figure out what this little angle is going to be, because step 1 is, that's a nice and easy one because that's angles in a semicircle, so that's going to be 90 degrees. Number 2 is I could figure out what this angle is because it's angles in a straight line, so that's 180 take away y. So that's right there, that's step number 2. The next step is, what else do I need? Do I need this little angle here? Yeah, there's a couple of ways you can do this, right? Like you could find that little angle there, the question mark that I've put there. But then you still need to figure out that corner Q angle. Okay, so let's actually figure out the corner Q angle, which is this one here. So we're going to figure out this. The third angle is, if you remember, opposite, like, you know, you've got a quadrilateral here, so which is what they call like a cyclic quadrilateral, and the opposite angles in a quadrilateral actually add up to 180 degrees. So that basically means that the green angle here and the blue angle here must add up to 180 degrees. Once we have that, what else could we do? We could do two things from here. We could actually figure out either this angle and then this angle. Now that's two extra steps there. Let's minimize the steps. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what this angle here is as our step 4. Because for that, you've actually got angles in a triangle right there. So I'm going to get rid of that for now, and I'm going to come back to it. And then we can finally figure out step 5, which is actually angle Z. Okay, so let's kind of break this down. So the first thing we're going to figure out is angle 1. So angle 1 is PRW. That's equal to 90 degrees because we can say that angles in a semicircle equal to 90. So that's step 1. Step 2, we've already figured out what it is because we've got angles in a straight line. So I'm talking about this thing right here. So we've got a straight line there, and we are trying to figure out the little missing angle inside of it, which we already kind of did, right? So we can actually say angle RWP equals 180 take away Y, because that is angles on a straight line. Then we're going to go to angle 3, which is in that colored green in the top corner. So that one, it's going to be angle P. What do we got? We've got angle PQR. So remember, both of those angles add up to 180 degrees. So I'm talking about these two angles, because opposite angles in a quadrilateral inside a circle, they actually add up to 180 degrees. So with that in mind, I can actually kind of say 180 take away 180 minus Y. So what I've done is I'm actually taking away that 180 minus Y because I know that whatever's left over, both of those are going to add up to 180 degrees. So here, I'm going to expand the brackets. So I've got 180 take away 180 plus Y. So angle PQR is equal to Y degrees. And our reasoning for this is opposite angles in a cyclic quad add to 180 degrees. All right, so now let's figure out number 4 here. Number 4 is highlighted in pink there. So we've got a little triangle there, which is PRW. So I've got angle angle RPW. So RPW is going to be 180 take away 90 plus RPW 90 plus 180 take away Y. Alright, so now I've got to expand the brackets, which means I'm going to get 180 take away 90 take away 180 plus Y, and what I've got here is missing something here. Am I? Nope, no, that's fine. I think I've got everything here. So this angle 4 is going to be 90 minus that, Y minus 90. All right, I'm slightly doing it slightly different from the answer schedule, so hopefully this works. So now that we've got all of these different things, I'm going to put them in another little triangle here so you can kind of see it. So this is Z. This is angle 3, which happens to be Y. This is angle at the corner, which is X plus Y minus 90. So then we can kind of say that 5, which is angle Z. So angle Z is equal to 180, take away Y plus X plus Y, take away 90. So expanding the brackets, we're going to get, put everything together first. So we got X plus 2Y minus 90. And then we can kind of say that 180, take away X, take away 2Y plus 90. And what we've got here is 270 minus X minus 2Y. And for this, the reason is angles in a triangle equal to 180 degrees. So looking at the answer schedule, if you find, I'm just going to go to the answer schedule because it's just easier to show, and achieved could be any one of these things. So one step shown involving calculation involving X or Y. So you got to have X or Y in one of your answers to get an achieved. For merit, you can need two angles involving calculations with one reason. All right, so that's two answers and one reason. And then, or you've got the value of Z having substituted numerical values. So that's what I mean by numerical values, right? So if we go back to the question, where is this? So you might have actually decided, look, I don't want to work with numbers. I'm just going to put some numbers in here. Now you might be thinking, well, what number am I supposed to put? All right, let's have a look at this. The first clue here is that you might actually say Y cannot be like 10 degrees, right? Because if you think about it, 90 degrees is like that. So as long as you put any number that's actually above 90 degrees, you're going to be safe for Y. And as for X here, as long as you put any number that's actually less than 90 degrees, once again, you're going to be okay with that. All right, so what's really important is that when you are guessing and checking with numbers, you got to look at the diagram, even though it says it's not to scale, right? I mean, that's the annoying part about it. You know, I can look at it, diagram's not to scale, but we're just kind of playing around with numbers, and theoretically it should still work. So if we have a look at go back to the answer schedule, this is a E8, so it's a double excellence question by the looks of it. So you get your final answer with clear justification. That's like all of your reasons. I would say you would be looking at 8 points. But if you look at for E7, you've got the right answer for Z, but unclear justification or not simplified. And I think the simplified one is pretty important to keep in mind. Like, they like their answers to be simplified. You can't just leave it with big statements. So it's just something to keep in mind. Anyway, guys, I think that's question 2. Yep, we go to question 3 next. All right, guys, on to question 3. So with question 3, what we've got is we've got to figure out angle F. Before we figure out angle F, we probably need to figure out what this angle here is first. Once we do that, we can actually figure out what angle F is. A couple of ways of doing this, but we're going to use this one here. Right. So the first step is we've got to actually work out, what do we got? What do we got? We've got opposite and hypotenuse. So we're going to be using sine rule. So sine, let's call this x. Sine of x is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. So sine of x is equal to 33 over 85. And then x is equal to inverse sine of 33 over 85. I think, just want to double check. Yeah, my calculator is still in the right mode. So we've got shift sine of 33 divided by 85. And that's going to give me 22.85 degrees. So x is equal to 22.85 degrees. So then I can say F is equal to 90 minus 22.85 degrees, which is 22.85. Yeah, 67.15. Oh, I should have actually, I just realized 22.84, sorry. Let's make that error. Makes 67.16 degrees. Okay, so grades wise, this question is worth and achieved. We move on. All right, next part of this question. So with question B, what we've got here is a similar triangle. Now, there are some videos in my channel on similar triangles, guys, for tutorials on, especially on the live tutorials. Have a look. But really, it's imagine it like being a fraction over a fraction, all right? And as long as you match up the sides, you are pretty much good to go. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do some color matching here. So I've got green over blue should equal to pink over red. All right, so basically green divided by blue should equal to pink divided by red. Well, so imagine it like this. That is all you need to know for similar triangles, because once you get that concept, then it's basically just learning how to rearrange, or even better, if you don't know how to rearrange, you can use your graphics calculator for that. Now I'm going to show you guys both method here. So the green part is worth actually 4.64 divided by the blue, which happens to be G plus 4.64 equals to, we've got purple, which is 2.85 divided by red, which happens to be 10.26. Now you might be thinking there, it's like, how am I gonna solve this when G is at the bottom, right? Now the beauty about a fraction equal to another fraction is that when it's just one single fraction, which is equal to one single fraction, you can flip it. So in this case, I'm just gonna flip this as G plus 4.64 divided by 4.64 equals 10.26 divided by 2.85. Now at this point, I've got to cross multiply. So I've got G plus 4.64 equals 10.26 over 2.85 multiplied by 4.64. So I'm going to do that first on my calculator. So I've got 10.26 multiplied by 4.64 divided by 2.85. Now this is going to give me 16.704. So I've actually got G plus 4.64 equals 16.704. So G is equal to 16.704 take away 4.64. And when I do that, I am going to get a value for G, which is take away 4.64, gives me 12.064 centimeters. Now the grades for this question is actually, this is actually what the merit question, right? And it actually says, I'm going to show you guys the schedule here. So we've got calculation of correct value of G is with evidence of working. Like I'm just trying to think, it's like, I mean, like, is this part considered evidence of working? Because if it is, then you can put this equation in the calculator straight away and get the answer. Because what you could do is go into menu, go into equation, we're going to go into solver, and we are going to put this G. I mean, you can actually type in G as well in your graphics calculator. You just have to go alpha, and where is G? Right there, alpha G, if you want to. But I'm just going to go G plus 4.64 divided by 4.64 is equal to 10.26 divided by 2.85. I press enter, and then right here there's a little solve button, which is F6. I solve it, and that's going to give me G as 12.064, which is why I'm, you know, like, would I consider this top line that I've highlighted here as evidence of working? Because, you know, then if it is, then you could just do that in the calculator and walk away with a merit for this question. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this question. Like, I'm trying to think. It's like, yeah, there's nothing else. I mean, I know that there's like, I mean, you can use like trigonometry to work out the angles and then do all of that. That's another way you could do it, but similar triangles is by far the easiest, and it's a useful skill to have going into these exams. All right, let's go to the next question, guys. You can see I left a lot of room for that. All right, on to C part 1 of this question. Lots and lots of things happening here. I guess the first thing to notice is that if you look at that, this right here, 128 degrees, bearing of 128 degrees. Bearings means wherever the starting point is, from that starting point, we're gonna put this as north, which means this angle here is 128 degrees. And if you look at angle U, it actually forms a co-interior angle between two parallel lines, 128 and U. So we can actually say that U is equal to 180 take away 128 degrees, which equals to 52 degrees. And I guess if you look at the question, it actually says show that the size of U is 52 degrees. So here we can just say co-interior angles between parallel lines. Add to 180 degrees. And that's to get you started off with this question with an achieved. And again, the answer schedule, it does say reason not necessary. I guess for these achieved questions, they really just want to see your understanding and not kind of stressing about the reasoning, which, yeah, I guess, you know, the papers have changed. All right, let's go to the second part of this question. I'm gonna need to copy this. It's always a problem with these questions is that I kind of forget the diagram from the first part of the question. But anyway, we are trying to figure out what is the bearing from part A to part C. Okay, so to figure out the bearing, what the question is actually asking us from A, bearing of A from C. From C. So from C, bearing of A from C. So basically we're looking at from C, which means the bearing that we're looking for is actually like this. So going all the way around to there. So what we could do is, there's just so many ways of doing this question. I guess the way that I prefer doing is trying to figure out the lengths of the outside. I mean, I know it might take a little bit longer, but it just makes sense to me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna find this distance here. Where is it? Should I do it that way? There's just so many ways. I'm trying to find the easiest way, but at the same time the one that makes logical sense for you guys. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, yeah, I think just do the long method. It's fine. That's fine. That's fine. So I am gonna figure out, I need to write some steps down here. So I'm gonna figure out this length here first, 1. Then I'm gonna figure out this length, which happens to be 2. Then I'm gonna figure out this length, which is 3. This length, which is 4. So once I figure out those 4 lengths, then I can use trigonometry to work out the remaining part. So looking at part 1. So part 1 is that long stretch line, which is AG, right? I know that U is equal to 52 degrees. We've already figured that out from the previous question there. So that right there is 52 degrees. Which means we have opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. And I need to find both opposite and adjacent, right? So with that, I'm going to go sine of 52 equals opposite over hypotenuse, which is 1500. that's for part 1. Part 2 is going to be sine, no, not sine, cos, because it's adjacent. Cos of 52 is adjacent over 1500. So I hope you guys can see that. So this is part 1. This is part, that's the wrong color. Let's try this one. Yeah, you can see that. This is part 2. All right, so I'm trying to find that sides of those right angle triangles. So here, opposite is equal to 1500 sine 52. Adjacent is equal to 1500 cos 52. All right, so let's do that. So we've got 1500, whoa, menu. 1500 times sine 52. That's going to give me opposite is equal to 1182.02, and then adjacent is going to be 923.5. Okay, next I'm going to do these two parts. So this is part 3 and part 4 I'm going to work out next. So for part 3 and 4, what do we have here? We don't actually have an angle, and we need to figure out what an angle is first, and we can figure that out here, because that angle there, if you look at it, you've got angles in a straight line. You've got 52 there, you've got 90 here, and if it's 90, 52, because we got angles in a straight line, we can say that this angle here will be 38 degrees. Okay, so if that's the angle, then what we've got here is opposite and hypotenuse again. I need to choose a different color. So that's going to be opposite and that's going to be adjacent. So the red part is our adjacent, which means we're going to use cos 38 equals adjacent over 800, and then sine 38 equals opposite over 800. So adjacent is 800 cos 38, opposite is 800 times sine 38. So let's work this one out. Cos 38 is 630.41. 800 times sine 38 happens to be 492.53. Okay, so you might be wondering, why did I get all of those numbers down? Now we're going to draw this diagram again, and we've got A. It's probably like my worst diagram, but it's not too bad. And then we've got all of these measurements here. Okay, so let's start putting these up. So we know this top distance is going to be 1182.02. So that's the yellow part right there. So that's this top big line there. Next thing is we've got our pink line, which is 923.5, which happens to be here. Then we've got the red line, which is here, that's number 3, which is 630.41. And finally, we have our orange line, which is here. It's going to be 492.53. Now you might be wondering, why did I do all of that? The reason why I did all of that is because I want to actually figure out what this angle here is, because then I could just add that to 270 to get my bearing of A from C. So now what I really am trying to do is I'm trying to work with this triangle right here, this blue triangle. Now I know the height of the blue triangle is the same as pink plus red. So I'm going to do pink plus red here, which is 923.5 plus 630.41, which gives me 1553.97. And as for the base, I've got yellow minus orange for the base of the blue triangle. So 1182.02 minus 492.53 gives me 689.49. Okay, with that in mind, now I can actually work out what that angle is. So I could actually go tan, I'm going to call this x. Tan of x is opposite, which is 1553.97 divided by 689.49. So I can say that the angle is inverse tan of 1553.97 divided by 689.49. So let's hope that this actually works. So what do we got? 1553.97 divided by 689.49. All right, so that's going to give us an angle of 66.07 degrees. Now if that's 67.07 degrees, then the bearing is, remember, it's actually 270, because the bearing is basically from here going all the way around there. So we've got that 270 that we need to add, plus the 66.07, which actually gives us 336.07 degrees. You know, looking at this question, I know like a couple of years ago, this particular bearings question generally tends to be like an excellence question. And I look at the amount of work that we've had to do. Yeah, surprised that this is only a merit question, and you've got to get the right answer for merit, and anything else extra you are looking at an achieved. So here, which is a bit kind of strange for such a long question to be only a merit. It is what it is. All right, let's go to the next question. Achieved, like I said, any one of those other calculations is going to get you an achieved, but you need the correct bearing to get a merit. All right, let's have a look at the next question here. So the first part of this question, what we've got, what we got to figure out is the height BT, which happens to be this right here. It actually show that it's 30.05. So if you have a look at this question, what we've got here is, and I think the key point is right here, there are 3 right angle triangles, okay? And they're kind of like meeting at the corner. So what we could do is we could actually figure out what this green line is first using the bottom triangle. So I'm looking at the bottom triangle and we work out what that green line AB is, because once we figure that out, then we can actually figure out what BT is by using trig again. So with my bottom triangle, what I've got here is 56 and 86, and I'm looking for this distance here. So I've got adjacent and hypotenuse. So I have cos 56 is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. That's not 86 degrees. So cos 56 is equal to adjacent over 86. So adjacent is 86 times cos 56. So in our calculator, 86 times cos 56 gives us 48.09. Once we have that, because this is now 48.09, we can actually figure out what BT is, because we can actually use the next triangle, which happens to have 32 degrees. This is 48.09, and this is what we're trying to figure out. Like, maybe I shouldn't call it H. I don't know, I'll call it B, which is this thing right here. Should have called it T for tau, but it doesn't matter. So in this case, we've got opposite, adjacent. So we've got tan. So tan 32 equals opposite divided by adjacent. So tan 32 equals B divided by 48.09. So we're going to get B is equal to 48.09 multiplied by tan 32. 48.09 multiplied by tan 32. So there we go. That gives me 30.05 meters. And I believe I've actually shown that. Now this question is a bit weird because in terms of the answer schedule, it's like, let me just show you guys. So it feels like there's like a couple of, as you can see, like if I prove tower, I get a merit point. Otherwise I get 8 points if I do the final part, which is clear evidence proving tower height is 30.5 and angle. So we got to go do the angle first before we come back to this to figure out the full grade. So I guess it's a part 1, part 2 question, which I'm finding it strange by the time. But anyway, let's go to the part 2 and see. So it says calculate the angle of elevation from C to T. From C to T. Okay, so if they're looking for angle of elevation from C to T, they're actually looking for this angle here. So we've got a couple of extra steps to do because we've got this part right now, which happens to be 30.05. So we can actually work out this pink line, which happens to be here. And once we get the pink line, then we can actually use trigonometry to work out that angle. So we're going to go back to this part here, and we need to figure out what the opposite side is, which is the pink line there. So I'm just going to copy this triangle again. So I've got 56 and I've got 86 and I've got opposite there. Now you might actually say, well, why can't I use Pythagoras? Yes, you can use Pythagoras. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, I'm just going to work through this. All right, so we've got opposite and hypotenuse. So that means we're working with sine. So sine 56 is opposite divided by hypotenuse. So opposite is equal to 86 times sine 56. So opposite is equal to, I always do this, 86 times sine 56, which is 71.3. And if we think about it like this, so let's go back to the triangle. So the yellow part was the height, the pink part was the side, and I guess the question is, what is this angle here? That's what they asked us to figure out. We already know what the yellow part is worth, which is 30.05. When we figured out what the pink is, which is 71.30, and we've got opposite and adjacent. So we're going to use tan of whatever the question mark is, opposite over adjacent. Maybe I'll put this as x for now. So then I can say tan x equals 30.05 divided by 71.30, and then x is equal to inverse tan of 30.05 divided by 71.30. So inverse tan of 30.05 divided by 71.30, and that's going to give me 22.85 degrees. So let's go back to the answer schedule and we'll try and work it out, because when I look at it for 8 points, so that's an E8, you actually need this angle and this, both of these, and you get pretty much an E8, which which is a really easy excellence question. If I compare to the amount of work that we had to do for the previous question, which was just a merit. Wow, you get an E7 even if you make like a tiny mistake. Like, check this out. So you could have got 30.05 and then you make a little tiny mistake along the working and you can still get 7 points. But if you do it fully correct, you get 8 points, which when I look at the previous question of the bearings question was a little bit more work, but maybe unless I made it a bit longer. Yeah, so it looks like that's pretty much it for this paper, guys. Like, very surprising excellence question at the end, I have to say. I mean, like, I was expecting like a little bit more complex bit of bearings, but no, it's not. In terms of cut scores, I mean, I know I haven't done this before, but might as well start doing this right now. So there's a cut score there. So yeah, achieved is 7 points to get an achieved. So basically, if you got like 3 achieved questions correct, you are looking at, well, not 3, I think you need 4, because 3 would give you 6 points. 2 would give you 3. Yeah, I always get messed with that. Hang on. Yeah, because it's the achieved, they still, there we go. So if you get 2 U's, you get 3 points. If you get 3 U's, you get 4 points. So basically, you're looking at getting 6 achieved questions correct to kind of get a pass. For a merit, you only need 3 merit questions correct. Because if you get 3 merit questions correct, you get 5 points each, which will give you 15. And then for excellence is not bad. I mean, you get a, what did you get? 6, 6, 12. No, that won't make, no, 21 make it. So you probably need like 2 excellence questions correct to get an excellence in this. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this paper, guys. Let's see. Have I done everything? Yes, I have done everything. Cool. So to wrap it up, guys, just a few little tips for you guys. Graphics calculator, change the mode to degrees. That's number 1. Number 2, don't forget that if you don't know the reasons, just work out the answers anyway. Even if you work out the answers, you could easily get a couple of achieved points for that. Those algebraic ones, they might seem a bit hard at the beginning, but substitute it with numbers. Once you're comfortable with numbers, replace it with letters and just kind of work through it. You'll be fine with that. And again, I'll see if I can try and run a couple of tutorials before the exam day to kind of those algebraic questions so that you guys kind of get the hang of it, because it's not that challenging. It's, if you know the basics, then you pretty much know the algebraic one as well. Yeah, so just want to wish you guys all the best and catch you in the streams. Hey guys, that is basically it for this video. As always, don't forget to like this video, share this video, and of course subscribe to keep up with the latest content. There should be some playlists popping up. Check them out. Great revision material. And as always, thank you for watching.